Taranto, southern Italy, 2058 hours. The great harbor lies calm under a thin November moon, its waters black glass reflecting the riding lights of 6 battleships. Connie di Cavour Littorio, Caio Duilio, Vittorio Veneto, Andrea Doria, Giulio Cesare. The pride of the Regia Marina, anchored in 2 neat rows behind layers of steel anti-torpedo nets. Searchlights sweep lazily across the sky. Anti-aircraft crews smoke on deck, confident, almost bored. Deep inside the inner harbor, known as the Mar Piccolo, the heaviest ships rest closest ashore. Sailors play cards below decks. Officers sip grappa in the wardrooms. No one expects trouble tonight. British carriers are thought to be hundreds of miles away, crippled by earlier losses. And even if they came, who would fear the Royal Navy's antique ferry Swordfish? Slow, fabric-covered biplanes nicknamed string bags for their flimsy open cockpits and rigging. Relics from the last war, laughable against modern fleets. Out at sea, 170 miles southwest, the carrier HMS Illustrious steams into the wind. Flight, decks alive with activity. Ground crews swing propellers by hand. Torches flicker under wings as armors fuse 18-inch torpedoes and 250-pound bombs. 21 Swordfish prepare to launch in 2 waves. Pilots in fleece-lined flying suits climb into cockpits open to the freezing slipstream. Observers settle behind them with maps and flares. Gunners load Lewis guns and ammunition drums. Lieutenant Commander Kenneth Williamson, leading the first strike, taxis forward. His Swordfish lurches, lifts, disappears into the night. One by one, the others follow. Engines drone steadily at 90 knots, wings glinting faintly under starlight. They climb to 7,000 feet, then descend toward the Italian coast. On the ground, Italian radar detects faint blips but dismisses them as friendly or false echoes. No alert sounds. The harbor remains quiet. At 22:58, the first wave crosses the coastline. Williamson's formation splits. 12 aircraft head for the outer Mar Grande, 9 for the inner Mar Piccolo. Flares drop suddenly, blooming white over the water. Searchlights snap on, frantic. Guns open fire too late. The Swordfish dive low, skimming waves at 30 feet. You can almost feel the salt spray on their wings, the roar of radial engines echoing off anchored steel. The first torpedo runs true. 2,300 hours. Taranto harbor erupts. White parachute flares hang in the sky like frozen stars, turning night into eerie daylight. Italian gunners, startled from their complacency, rush to positions. Pom-pom guns chatter. Heavy 90mm and 102mm batteries thunder upward. Tracers arc in red and green streams, searching for the intruders. But the Swordfish are already below the barrage, hedge-hopping at mass height. Lieutenant Williamson banks hard over the Mar Grande, eyes fixed on the massive silhouette of the new battleship Littorio. His observer, Lieutenant Scarborough, leans out, counting seconds. At 700 yards, Williamson releases. The torpedo drops with a splash, porpoises once, then steadies on its run. Aboard Littorio, alarms finally scream. Turrets train uselessly skyward. Crew scramble to close watertight doors. Too late. The torpedo strikes just forward of the starboard bow. A dull thud, then a column of water rises 50 feet. The great ship shudders. Lights flicker. Damage control parties race below as compartments flood. Moments later, Lieutenant Kemp leads another section toward Caio Duilio. Anti-aircraft fire thickens here, shells bursting in black puffs. Shrapnel rips through fabric wings. One Swordfish trails smoke, but presses on. Kemp dives at 20 feet, releases, pulls up sharply over the battleship's pagoda mast. His torpedo runs straight under the anti-torpedo nets. Duplex pistols armed to detonate beneath the keel. The explosion lifts Duilio's bow clear of the water. Steel plates buckle. She settles rapidly by the stern. In the Mar Piccolo, the inner harbor, the second half of the wave faces even heavier fire. Flares illuminate Connie di Cavour like a stage set. Lieutenant Clifford and his gunner fly straight through a wall of tracer. Their aircraft is hit multiple times, rigging wire severed, fuselage hold. Yet Clifford holds course. Torpedo gone. Direct hit amidships. Cavour lists immediately. Fires breaking out along her deck. One by one, the string bags deliver their loads. Some pilots return for a second run, dropping bombs on destroyers and cruisers. Fuel tanks ignite. Oil slick spread, burning on the water. The air fills with cordite, burning varnish, screams of steam. By 2340, the first wave turned for home. 11 of 12 aircraft limp back toward Illustrious. The harbor behind them is chaos. Sirens wailing, ships listing, crews fighting fires under drifting smoke. Italian commanders stare in disbelief. 3 capital ships gravely damaged in minutes. By biplanes, the weapons they had openly mocked. But the night is not over. A second wave of 9 swordfish is already airborne, guided by the glow on the horizon. 0:25 hours. The distant glow of burning oil guides them in. 9 more swordfish, launched from Illustrious and her escorting carriers, skim the waves at barely 20 feet. Leading this strike is Lieutenant Commander J.W. Hale, his aircraft still carrying scars from earlier sorties. The pilots know what the first wave achieved. They also know the defenses are now fully awake. Taranto's sky is no longer quiet. Every gun that can bear opens fire. The harbor bristles with light. Searchlights stabbing blindly, tracers weaving a lethal lattice. Burning slicks on the water reflect the chaos, turning the sea into a mirror of hell. Hale's formation splits again. 5 aircraft target the outer harbor. For the inner, they drop even lower. Engines throttle back to reduce noise until the last moment. Over the Mar Grande, Lieutenant Michael Torrens spots the flagship Littorio, already listing from Williamson's earlier hit. She is trying to get underway, tugs straining at her sides. Torrens dives through a storm of fire. Shrapnel tears his lower wing. His observer, acting Sub-Lieutenant A.G. Gooch, coolly directs the run. Torpedo released at 600 yards. It strikes Littorio's port quarter. A second massive explosion. The battleship heels sharply, settling deeper, her decks awash. Nearby, another swordfish finds Littorio Veneto, the only undamaged modern battleship. The pilot lines up perfectly. The torpedo runs true, detonating beneath her armored belt. Though her damage is less catastrophic, flooding forces her to beach herself to avoid sinking. In the Mar Piccolo, the remaining aircraft hunt Connie de Cavour. She is already doomed, listing heavily, fires raging unchecked. Yet one more pilot presses the attack. A final torpedo slams into her side. The old dreadnought rolls slowly, her masts crashing against the harbor bottom as she capsizes in shallow water. Italian fighters finally scramble from nearby airfields, but arrive too late. The swordfish have done their work and are turning seaward. Of the 21 aircraft that launched, only 2 are lost, one shot down over the harbor, another ditching on return. 19 limp back to the carriers, wings shredded, crews exhausted but triumphant. Dawn approaches. Smoke rises in thick columns over Taranto. 3 battleships lie crippled or sunk. 2 more heavily damaged. Half the Reggio Marina's capital ship strength neutralized in a single night by obsolete biplanes. The mockery has turned to stunned silence. November 12, 1940. First light creeps across the Ionian Sea. From the flight deck of HMS Illustrious, lookouts watch the distant plume of smoke rising from Taranto like a funeral pyre. The carrier turns into the wind again, recovering the last stragglers. Swordfish touch down with shredded fabric flapping. Engines coughing on whole fuel tanks. Ground crews count the holes. Hundreds in some airframes, yet the string bags held together. Pilots climb down, legs stiff, faces blackened with oil and exhaustion. No jubilant cheers, just quiet nods. They know what they have done. Back in the harbor, Italian sailors stare at the devastation in numb silence. Connie de Cavour lies on her side in the mud of the Mar Piccolo, only her rust-red bottom and barnacled keel visible above water. Fires still smolder along her exposed hull. Caio Duilio sits stern down, decks awash, her proud tricolor ensign trailing in the oil-slicked shallows. Littorio, the newest and mightiest, lists heavily against the breakwater, her forward magazines flooded, turrets sagging like broken limbs. Tugs and salvage crews work frantically, but the damage is beyond quick repair. 3 battleships effectively destroyed, 2 more crippled, half the Regia Marina's battle line gone in hours. Admiral Andrew Cunningham, aboard HMS Warspite far to the south, receives the reconnaissance reports. A thin smile crosses his face. The Mediterranean fleet has just achieved what months of surface action could not. Parity with the Italian Navy, at the cost of 2 aircraft and 4 brave men. In Rome, Supermarina headquarters reels. Officers who weeks earlier scoffed at British carrier power now scramble to disperse the remaining fleet to safe reports. The battleship, queen of the seas for 4 decades, has been dethroned in a single night. Word spreads quickly. Neutral observers in Taranto count the wrecks. Newspapers in London prepare triumphant headlines. But farther away, in Tokyo, a different group of officers takes careful note. Imperial Japanese Navy Headquarters, Tokyo, late 1940 into 1941. Commander Minoru Genda pores over intelligence reports in a dimly lit room. Photographs smuggled from Taranto show the impossible. Battleships capsize in their own harbor, keels exposed like beach whales. Aerial reconnaissance images reveal the pattern of torpedo hits, the effectiveness of shallow water attacks despite anti-torpedo nets. Genda leans closer. The British used modified torpedoes with duplex pistols, dropped at low altitude, low speed, by slow biplanes that evaded radar and guns. He summons Captain Mitsuo Fukuda. They spread charts across the table. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, Battleship Row, shallow anchorage, American fleet anchored in neat rows, just like Taranto. The parallels are striking. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto listens intently when presented with the plan. He has long warned that aircraft, not battleships, will decide the next war. Taranto is proof. The Royal Navy has just demonstrated that a surprise carrier strike can cripple a fleet at anchor without risking surface ships. Japanese planners adapt every lesson. Shallower torpedo modifications. More aircraft, far more than 21. Horizontal bombers added to dive bombers and torpedo planes. Absolute secrecy. Overwhelming first strike. The mockery once directed at the swordfish now rebounds. The battleship era ends not with a grand fleet action, but in the burning harbors of Taranto and, a year later, Pearl Harbor. In London, Churchill reads the final reports from Cunningham. This glorious operation, he calls it. The Mediterranean is open to Allied convoys. Malta is supplied. Rommel's Africa Corps starves for want of sea lanes. In Berlin and Rome, battleship admirals fall silent. The old doctrines crumble. And in naval academies around the world, a new truth is written in bold letters. The aircraft carrier has ascended. The battleship, for all her thunder and steel, is no longer queen. Taranto proved it. One night, 21 string bags. A reversal that changed naval warfare forever.